Hello everyone, welcome back to Ferrigno Freedom channel. For those of you who are returning and for those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. It's nice to have you here. I am Dante Ferrigno. I've been on a carnivore diet known as the lion diet now for a little over 3.5 years. And it has changed things in my life like I never would have thought changing the way I eat would do. But those are all videos for another day. Be sure to check out some of my previous videos here on YouTube, including my very first video, 125 Days on Lion Diet, if you'd really like to learn more. For now, I have been following a lot of the things that RFK Jr. has been talking about because I am extremely interested in the Make America Healthy Again movement. Because that's what I've been doing here on YouTube for over 3 years, is trying to help not only make America healthy again, but to help everybody find out that they can get healthy again, to find out that they've been lied to about what's nutritious, about what nutrition is, about the basic guidelines, the food pyramid, the 4 food groups, all of this stuff. It's all just been tailored to fit somebody that wants to make money. And now it's being used to accumulate power too. It's weakening you, making you sick, making you fat, making you unhappy. The food system and pharma system we live in right now is a mess. So I wanted to check out this quick video where RFK Jr. and Vivek Ramaswamy rip into Kamala Harris for threatening Elon Musk. I find this very interesting because, one, I like Vivek a lot and what things that he talks about. I have really enjoyed listening to RFK's speeches lately, even though initially I had a hard time getting into RFK because when I listen to him, it's hard to listen to him with that difficulty he has speaking. But you know what? He does pretty darn good considering. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but when it comes to the health stuff and a few other things, I'm right on board. And then finally, the threatening of Elon Musk. I'm always a skeptic of people in general. Elon Musk was one of those ones that I wasn't sure about. He's kind of become the Bruce Wayne figure, in my opinion, though. He's the guy that's out there fighting the bad guys, even though he's a millionaire and doesn't have to do this, or in this case, a billionaire. I really like what he's done with Twitter and turning it into X and making it a free speech zone and taking a stand on free speech, taking a stand on free speech over more advertising dollars. Those are things that really motivate me when I see stuff like that. So since RFK is in the mix here and some people that I'm interested in, I figured we'll check it out and see if there's anything to be gleaned from it when it comes to the Make America Healthy movement again. I'm going to go ahead and put in my headphones so I don't have any echo going on with the echo cancellation feature turned on or not. All right, let's see here. Let's go ahead and bring up this video.
Any government that can silence its critics has a license for any kind of atrocity.
Can I just repeat that? Any government that can silence its critics has a license for any kind of atrocity.
Right.
Put that on your refrigerator, because that's true.
I agree.
Hamilton, Adams, and Madison said that we put the freedom of speech in the First Amendment because all the other bill rights are dependent on it. And sure enough, when the government discovered that it could censor our speech in early 2020, silence doctors, silence mothers, silence people who were, scientists who were saying, wait, there are other alternatives to what you're doing. The lockdowns aren't going to work. The masks have no science behind them. The social distancing has no science. Those people were silenced. They were marginalized, they were vilified, they were demonized. And as soon as the government figured out that it could get away with that, it went after all of our other constitutional rights. The first thing it did is it went after the other leg of the First Amendment, which is freedom of religion. It closed every church in our country for a year with no scientific citation. It went after the third leg of the First Amendment, which is freedom of assembly, with these very bizarre social distancing regulations that, again, they now admit were not science-based. They went after then the Fifth Amendment, which is property rights. They closed 3.3 million businesses with no due process, no just compensation, no scientific citation, no notice and comment rulemaking, no public hearings, all the things that I've been suing governments and corporations for 40 years, all the indicia of democracy that are
Well, you want to talk about something that's going to resonate with people? Anybody who just went through what we all went through over the past 4 years, ever since the whole thing started, has been mind-numbing, to say the least, to see what's been going on, to realize that our freedom has been completely under attack like never before, and that we were convinced or told we should be convinced or made to feel foolish if we weren't convinced that all the things they were saying were exactly the things that you had to do, or else you were a bad person or you were violating somebody else's protection or something like that. It has just been obvious to anybody who's paying attention that all of this is just a lie to take more control, to take more power, to take away from individual liberty. And it seems only now here in 2024 are we able to even talk about these things as if they actually happened. Because if we would have talked about this 3 or 4 years ago, just 3 years ago, I would have been threatened with my channel or anything where I even mentioned anything that talked about being misled about social distancing, being misled about mask wearing, being misled about where the virus came from, being misled on what I should tell my family members that they should get as far as an injection of some kind. And this is very personal for me, as I'm sure it is for a lot of you, because I not only got to see people who I cared for die in the process of all this, I also saw people that I love and am related to die in the process of all of this. I heard about people's families being separated from each other and dying in the process of all of this, dying alone in some cases. These are the things we need to remember when we're thinking about who we get our information from when it's regarding health especially, because health is everything. When you have a health problem, that's the only problem you have, because all of your other problems go away when you realize that you might not be here much longer. I was at that point when I was 48 years old where I felt like I'm not going to be here much longer if I don't solve this problem. But more than anything has been the gastrointestinal issues. I mean, they have just been debilitating. But I've gotten to the point where ultimately it only matters whether or not I can take care of my family. And if my health's going to be a problem, that's in the way. And I got to deal with that. So this is day one of the carnivore diet for me. And it was diverting my thinking process away from all of the things that I have been told by government agencies, supposedly health experts, nutritionists, and everything else for most of my life, telling me to avoid fat, to avoid red meat, to avoid salt. And now my diet consists of red meat, salt, fat, and water. And it has changed me like I never would have thought changing the way I eat would change me. And if anything, I would have thought, based on the things I'm eating now, I would have been dead 3 years ago. I've been doing this 3.5 years now. And at age almost about to be 52, I feel younger than I did when I was in my teens. And even in my teens, I didn't have the energy that I have these days. So it is truly remarkable what we have been lied to about, not only with regard to food, but also, as he's pointing out, with regard to individual liberty, the ability to gather together for churches, free speech, and with regard to our healthcare system being something that we can have any faith in. It's definitely been an awakening, but what is it doing to motivate people to do something different? I'm still surprised to see that we're drawn down such even lines of 50-50 in this country, when to me, it's clearly obvious that we are being lied to by the majority of those who are in the establishment of some kind. Yet, so many people still listen to the establishment as if they have some guidance to offer that's of value to you. And they don't. Well, anyway, I just had to stop for that because he really hit the nail on the head right out of the box. We're having the Hack Your Health event, used to be known as KetoCon, right down the road from where I live in Tampa, Florida. The event isn't until November of 2025, but the one reason it's worth taking a look at right now is because the prices are way lower than they have been in the past, up until Halloween of this year. And with my discount code Dante, D-A-N-T-E, you get an additional $100 off your purchase. Now, I don't get paid anything for that. This is something I'm simply doing because I love what my friend Robin has done with the Hack Your Health event, because we're all on the same path of hacking our health for the best we can do in the society we live in. Without community, you feel like you're all alone out there trying to do this on your own. But when you see other people changing their lives simply by changing the things that they eat or doing something as extreme as a carnivore diet, well, I can tell you, the only thing extreme about it has been how extremely good I feel and how much it has changed my life. It's a lot of fun to go to the event. You get to see a lot of gizmos that people are offering, a lot of the different carnivore snacks and keto snacks that are available, things you'll get to try while you're there. But even more important than all the vendors that are there, you're going to have information galore. Hearing all the different speakers that have so much knowledge, so much information to impart us with, it's going to open a lot of eyes. Hack Your Health is going to be awesome. So come on down to Tampa. I plan to be there, and I hope to see you there too.
That government officials have to go through before they deprive us of rights, and none of that happened. And they went after the Seventh Amendment, which bans jury, which the Seventh Amendment gives us the right to jury trials. The Seventh Amendment is very simple. It says no American shall be denied the right of a trial before a jury of their peers in case there are controversies exceeding $25. That's all it says. There's no pandemic exception. And by the way, the framers of the Constitution knew all about pandemics. There were two epidemics during the Revolutionary War. One of them, a malaria epidemic that decimated the armies of Virginia, and then a smallpox epidemic that decimated the armies of New England at the very time when Benedict Arnold, who was our greatest general, conquered Montreal. So we were in the inner city of Montreal. We controlled Montreal, which meant we controlled Canada. And he had to withdraw his troops because he could not hold the city because so many of his troops were down with smallpox. Otherwise, Canada today would be part of the United States, but for that smallpox epidemic. And the framers all knew that. And when they gathered 10 years later, 9 years later, in Philadelphia to ratify the Bill of Rights, between the end of the Revolution and the ratification of the Bill of Rights in 1792, there were epidemics in every city that killed tens of thousands of people. Malaria epidemics, smallpox, yellow fever, typhus, typhoid, cholera. So they all knew about epidemics, yet they did not put an epidemic exception in the Constitution. They wrote that document for hard times.
One of the things, you bring that up, Bobby, and I think one of the things we often fall into the trap of in an election year is to see, let's take the most important of those amendments, the First Amendment, through a partisan lens. Do we have a Democratic Party that has been using social media companies to silence speech through the back door that they could not through the front door? Absolutely we have. Is that something we need to hold them accountable for? Absolutely. But I think that if we're to, and this is one of the things I love about you, Tucker, is you're willing to challenge people 360 degrees. I don't care if you're Republican or not, I had conversations with a number of Republicans in the last week who are railing appropriately against Brazil for its banning of X, which is preposterous, actually. This is a major Western, supposedly allied nation. The very people who claim that we want to stand for human rights and democracy abroad have nothing to say when it comes to Brazil banning a social media platform. But then I challenge some of these same people, because I know what their views are on this question, to say, gee, sounds like a pretty bad idea for a government of a supposedly free country that just bans outright a social media platform because they don't like the way that it operates. And here's the part where we challenge our own people. That's exactly what the U.S. government has done with respect to a platform that I don't love that much. I don't like it. I don't like many aspects of it all, TikTok. But I do think that we live in one of these moments where the trap in an election year, this is one of the things I loved about your candidacy, Bobby, is leaving the Democratic Party to run as an independent allowed you to do what more of us in either party need to be doing, is question the orthodoxies of both parties and go back to first principles of what's in the U.S. Constitution. And you got to have the same shoe fit the other foot, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. And that's one of the things I loved about the way you ran your campaign, man.
Well, a couple of things there. I found it interesting that a pandemic had such a big role to play in the situation with Canada. I had researched that many years ago. My memory tells me that it was General Montgomery on his invasion of Quebec was kind of the turning point on that, because he was leading the charge on the invasion and he got shot early with cannon fire, and that kind of just stopped the whole thing from happening. And that was, as far as tactically speaking, was one of the big reasons why Canada didn't fall under the United States control. But this part about the pandemic definitely, we don't look at it through the lens of history as having as big of a role as it did. But there are many cases where even when I've studied history, I've heard about the smallpox pandemic. And he mentioned another one too that I didn't think about. But because the pandemic notion is so clear in my thinking right now, and how governments can use them and how they can affect the whole landscape of things, it makes total sense. So that was interesting. And Vivek's comments about getting back to first principles is something that, I've been talking about that most of my life. When I teach history and when I've talked about history, I don't come at it from a left or a right perspective. I simply come at it as, don't try to read into it what you want to read into it. When you're reading the Constitution, you've got to read into it based on the things that the founders said in other letters to each other to reference what the meanings of these words are. It's very similar to the way you're supposed to read the Bible, because you can make anything say anything you want if you take it out of context, or you bend the context, or you ignore the context altogether. And that's one of the problems we've seen throughout the past 250 years that America has been a nation, is that we have slowly moved away from those principles, a little here and a little there and a little here and a little there. And now we're at the point where a government thinks it can take the risks that it's taken over the past 4 years to completely attack all of your freedoms and see what would happen. Well, I've been discouraged to see that there has been very little pushback against this. I don't know what that pushback would look like, but it sure seems like the people who are in positions of authority right now are all on the wrong team. Now, there are a few that would be excluded from that, but it's such a small few, and none of them are perfect. No person is perfect. I want to make that clear from the beginning. I don't think anybody is the hero in this situation, but anybody who sticks with the truth as close as they can, or at least doesn't lie and doesn't omit the truth, those two things are what I'm looking for from people who are going to be leading. And it seems like omitting the truth and obscuring the truth is something that they're taught in politics these days, rather than actually just addressing it. But when I see Vivek talk, I see somebody who's willing to admit his faults as well as what we should be doing, and he's speaking from a position of truth. When I hear RFK talk about some of the things that he talks about, I see that same truth seeker in him. Even though I don't agree with all the policies, I went and looked up on one of his pages that he agrees with. I agree with them a lot more than what I hear coming from the World Economic Forum and all of their puppets. And you may be wondering, how does all this play into health? If you can't speak the truth about things in general, how are you going to be able to speak the truth about health? If they are locking down your right to talk about this or to say that, or to, for instance, I live under the constant threat that my channel is going to be shut down because the things I talk about don't fall in line with the World Health Organization. I don't even know if what I say is against it or not. I don't pay attention to what the World Health Organization says. So that's my opinion of them. I really don't think very much of them, but that's my personal opinion, and I think I'm allowed to share it. We'll see if this video stays up or not. But if you're not able to speak the truth and say something that goes against what government says when it comes to health, you're not going to be able to find out for yourself that a carnivore way of eating could save your life, because all of the guidelines tell you the opposite of that. If you have a doctor who's not willing to speak the truth because the guidelines don't allow him to, or just make it easy for him to keep making an easy buck and not worry about people, then they have no reason to take a stand. We need to have free speech if we're going to have any kind of chance of saving our health as well, because we have to be able to speak the truth to one another. Anytime totalitarianism takes over, one of the first things they have to attack is the ability to speak the truth. And what happens is everybody starts lying to each other. Now, if we look at all the lies that have been told to us about nutrition over the past 50 plus years, we can see where that leads. It's led to a country full of people, in the case of the United States especially, where so many people have chronic illnesses that are related to diet that it is just unfathomable. People have issues today that 100 years ago were non-existent, like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. This was something that was pretty much exclusive to people who were alcoholics. Now, the military has a problem with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease from the amount of people who are getting this disease from eating way too much sugar, and especially in the form of fructose, because it builds up fat around your liver and causes the problem I'm talking about. Free speech is the only way that the truth can ever come to light. Whenever somebody is willing to censor what anybody else is saying, that means the truth can be censored as well. And typically the truth is censored by those in power, because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If you're able to control what people can say to each other, you have far more power than if you let them speak. And corruption seems to be the rule of the day for the powerful right now. So all I can say is I pray we have a change in that regard, because I want us to live free. I want us to live healthy. And that's why I support the Make America Healthy Again movement. Let's press on.
Thank you for that. I saw Vice President Harris this week gave a statement where she said that, she said two things. She said, one, that Elon Musk better watch out, because if he abused free speech on Twitter, that he would get that privilege taken away from him.
It's not a privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and it isn't a privilege, as you know, it's a right.
It's a right.
And she said, he gave a press conference in which she said that these companies need to be punished for putting disinformation and misinformation and hate speech up on the internet. And the thing is, with the and Vice President candidate Waltz said the First Amendment does not protect disinformation and misinformation. But that's not right.
No.
The First Amendment protects disinformation, and it protects misinformation, and it protects lies. It protects all speech. It was not written for the speech that we all want to hear.
Right.
It was written to protect a speech that nobody wants to hear. And it was, and you know, we have the Democratic Party, the party I grew up in, and the word liberal is a derivative of the term for free speech. So that was the central core of this party. When I was growing up, my father, my uncle loved this country so much because of they loved the freedom to debate, have conversations, the free. This idea that the free flow of information was the sunlight, it was the soil, it was the water for democracy, and without it, democracy would wither and die. They knew that. Oh, I have a case right now against the Biden administration, and I was just granted an injunction in the federal courts. Kennedy versus Biden, and Judge Doty, the federal judge in that decision, wrote in the earlier decision, he wrote a 155-page decision that details what we now know about the Biden White House's censorship program. And what Doty details in this is that 37 hours after he took the oath of office, swearing to uphold the Constitution, which includes the First Amendment, he opened up a portal and ordered the social media companies, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, to begin censoring his political critics. And on medical information, but also other information as well, including criticism of the Ukraine war. And I was the first person that they ordered Facebook to censor. Facebook actually pushed back at one point and said, Facebook complied and took down my entire Instagram account with almost 1 million followers. But they couldn't find a single factual misstatement, error on my Instagram account. And Facebook, during the email exchange, which we now have, pushes back at one point and says, this is actually not factually erroneous. And so they had to coin a new word, which was malinformation, which is information, factual assertions that are technically correct, but are nevertheless inconvenient for the government. And they ordered Facebook to censor misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. So that portal which they opened, the Biden White House turned over to the FBI to manage. So you have the FBI participating in the censorship of American citizens engaging in political speech. The FBI then invited the CIA, CISA, which is a group that you may not have heard of, but it is the center of the censorship industrial complex, the DHS, the IRS, which I don't know what they were censoring, and NIH, CDC, and FDA to participate in this censorship project. And I now have an injunction against the Biden White House from doing that to me anymore.
Interesting stuff. I find it all very good that this is being brought to light because, as I've mentioned, one of the things that's been so difficult for me is I know I'm saying things that people in positions of government are not interested in having being said publicly because they're getting kickbacks and payments from big food companies, big pharma companies to support legislation that helps their sales go up, whether it's the pharmaceutical industry or the food industry. They do things like subsidize certain foods that are basically kickbacks to the people who helped them get elected. So corruption has taken full control in so many places of positions of power right now that even though I'm thankful so far, YouTube hasn't done anything to stop me from speaking the truth as I have seen it in my life about a carnivore way of eating. But that doesn't mean that day isn't coming. And it seems like they keep trying to test the fence. They keep testing the fence to see how much more of your freedom they can take from you until it's all gone. At some point, we have got to say no more of this. People have got to wake up to the fact that if you can't speak the truth, then you don't exist anymore. You don't matter at all if you're not able to speak and live the truth as you know it to be. And if you can't speak the truth, then you're not going to be able to find the truth either, because nobody's going to be speaking the truth. And how is anybody going to benefit from that except for the people that control everybody's thinking, that control the media, that control the bureaucracy? I think there's a lot more at play here than just getting healthy, but that's the focus of my channel, because I think that that's where I can have an impact, because I have found a way to take control of my life again by getting on a good way of eating. I only eat ruminant meat, water, and salt. You can check out the Lion Diet on my website at ferrignofreedom.com and find out what all that means. You can see a lot of my videos there. You can also see a lot of the things that I use to cook meats, whether it's salt or air fryers that I use or dehydrators or any of the equipment that I use to make a carnivore way of eating fit into a very busy 21st century lifestyle. All of that is there at ferrignofreedom.com. Any purchases you make do support what I'm trying to do here. We need to keep moving forward with making ourselves healthy again. And in this country, I am all about the Make America Healthy Again movement. And anybody who wants to support that and supports things like free speech, I'm all about. So I'm really glad to hear that RFK is working with Donald Trump right now to help make that a reality. And even though I don't have a lot of faith in the systems that are in place for our voting, I just pray for a good outcome. I mean, because I turn to the Lord every day with my concern for my country and my family and my own life, as I realize that the voices of tyranny are trying to shut us all out of being able to make good decisions for ourselves, and that includes getting healthy. But there's so much more at stake. It's just hard for me to put it all into words sometimes. But if you're anything like me, you feel that pressure too. You feel what's coming in, how they're encroaching upon our freedom more and more all the time, and how we're being lied to about so many things. We live in perilous times when the truth seems to be so difficult to discern. Although people who are paying attention, I think they can discern the truth very well. But that's just what I think. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments, and I'll see you guys on the next video.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?